Hello and welcome to another Looney Tunes review video. If you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe to follow my journey to review all 1000 Looney Tunes shorts and give this video a like as well. So this is a review for Angel Puss, released in 1944. It's the 431st in the series and it's directed by Chuck Jones. It's also the 10th in the infamous Censored 11 series of cartoons. As such, there is no official release, and this particular scan, the person wishes to remain anonymous but is happy for me to use it for this review. So in case you haven't seen this one, and honestly if you haven't, be fortunate, but anyway, for the sake of completeness, a young black boy is tasked with drowning a cat. Yes, you heard it correctly, drowning a cat. The cat escapes, and the cat then pretends to be a ghost and torments this boy for the rest of the short. And that's pretty much it. What you're first going to see is a re-edit of the original commentary track I did with my good friend Fox in the Fix, who is an avid cartoon fan from the Netherlands. And thanks to Blue Genocide for your help there. Plus, you'll hear some new thoughts from me, so grab some popcorn and try and enjoy the review.
The art direction is not that bad, but you know, the caricature and the terrible gambling gag just ruins it all for me, so it's bad.
And with me today to discuss this rather controversial cartoon is my good friend Fox in the Fix, so say hi.
Hey guys, it's Fox, and you just watched the best part of this picture, the title sequence, with the song Angel in the Skies played over it from a 1940s Warner Brothers movie. It all came true.
Unfortunately,
yeah, I know that Stephen Fetchit was even caricatured by Disney cartoons in like 39 in the Autograph Hound.
Yeah, that's the one, Autograph Hound. I love that. It's a great cartoon, which I would rather be watching than this one, because this one I consider to be one of the worst Looney Tunes ever made. Less because of the stereotype, which is bad, of course, as I mentioned. But the story is basically about this boy being paid to drown a cat, and the cat sort of makes his escape and torments the boy, and the cat ends up getting shot at the end, and it's like, I don't know, it's not good, it's not funny, it's really just bad. There's an article which I will put a link below on cartoon research by Christopher Lehman, who and I hope I pronounced his surname correctly, where he basically wrote to Chuck Jones about this cartoon, but Chuck's daughter replied saying that Chuck will not reply to the letter. So effectively, Chuck even disowned this cartoon, and he must not have liked working with Lou Lilly, I would think.
And even his daughter doesn't want to talk about it. Talk about it to this day. So they must have thought it was a real failure. And you know, I love how this wall looks right here.
Yeah.
I did read an article written on October 7th in 44 by a guy named Herman Hill. He wrote in the Pittsburgh Courier, which was an African-American weekly newspaper, that apparently this short was shown between the main feature and March of Time's special newsreel Americans for All. And there was a newsreel that was aimed at the lessening of racism. And you know, that newsreel was ordered by WB to break down the evils of race prejudice. The article was really critical about placing this cartoon in front of the newsreel, and March of Time said they had nothing to do with the placing of the cartoon, but they did call it really poor taste. When you read other people's reviews of this cartoon, they really liked it. They said the audience loved it. But apparently there was some controversy about this in 44. Oh, I hate this part so much. Why does it have to be that dies every time a black character, appears? Yeah. I don't know if it's just Stephen Fetchit, but it also happens in Uncle Tom, and that's just a terrible way to have a stereotype of a black person.
Oh yeah.
I hate it.
Yeah, because it's all about the gambling, which, yeah, I know. This was actually my least favorite Looney Tunes for the longest time. Yes, even worse than the Paddy Freeling and all that sort of stuff. Yes, worse than a lot of the Buddy shorts I've seen. But I would say it's probably at the moment second worst, with the worst being I'm Going to Heaven on a Mule, which is just
I knew it.
Terrible. Right, so additional facts on this cartoon. So this is actually the first short to feature the direction credit as opposed to the supervisor credit that was going on up until this point. And in terms of the Censored 11, this is the only one that's part of the Looney Tunes series, as that series has now gone to colour, and it's also the only one directed by Chuck Jones. Now, let's have a chat about this short, because I definitely have a few things to say. So we're going to start off with the few positives of this short. Now the highlight is definitely the backgrounds, and this is actually the main reason why I do want to see this restored. I'm not sure who did the backgrounds here, and I did look into it, although John McGrew was working with Chuck Jones around this point, but whoever did the backgrounds here struck a nice balance between the abstract and the realistic, so while you do notice the backgrounds, they don't overwhelm the picture. Although in this cartoon I would argue that this is the few times I actually do want to be distracted, but anyway. Another highlight are some truly amazing animated moments, especially moments where the little Sambo, and yes, that's his name unfortunately, is trying to get his feet to move. There would also be moments that Chuck would reuse later on, namely a character being frozen in a position of shock for an extended period of time. But other than that, this short is a big mess. I mean, where to begin? So Mel Blanc does all the voices here, and while the cat isn't too bad, his voice for Little Sambo is cringeworthy. It's really bad. I mean, look, given the time period and how white actors were voicing black characters vast majority of the time, it is one of the lesser sins of this short, as painful as it is. There are two major problems here that makes this one of the worst Looney Tunes shorts ever made. First of all, the pacing is incredibly bad. I mean, it is awful. It takes the first third of the short to set up the premise in the first place, and when you have a 6 to 8 minute cartoon short, that is a very long time. Then we have the second third where there are a lot of gags that just take way too long, like the harp gag. I will concede, the harp gag works really well because of the sound or lack thereof, but it just takes way too long. Now the last part in the house does fare better, but it's over way too quickly, but then again it's probably a good thing. Keep in mind that Chuck around this time was transitioning away from his Disney-esque slow-paced shorts into the Chuck that we all know him for, and he actually did a few shorts around this time which had much better speed and pacing, such as the Dover Boys, but around this time his output was hit or miss in terms of pacing, and this one was a big miss. And when it comes to pacing, that is not the be-all and end-all. I can live with some shorts having lousy pacing, but still to be a lot of great things otherwise. Namely, of course, Chuck Jones' Sniffle shorts where, yeah, they're not the best, but hey, they at least look good and there is a lot to admire about them. No, the biggest issue of all is the premise. It is just putrid. Just period. You know, a story about a boy, whether they're black or otherwise, being paid to drown a cat, regardless of whatever reason, even if it was mentioned this short, and it isn't. It's just awful. You know, later on Chuck would direct shorts that would be quite dark, like the Hubie and Birdie series, where they would psychologically torture cats and that sort of thing, and they work because they don't involve such an awful premise in the beginning. You know, in the case of Hubie and Birdie, a lot of the time it's just, hey, we want to take over this house and we want to have dinner. You know, that's it. But it's amazing how the writer Lou Lilly would write this one, which is one of the worst Looney Tunes ever made, but then follow it up with Buckaroo Bugs, which is one of the best ever made. So it just seems like he was perhaps a better fit for Clampett than Jones. Now it's interesting in terms of racial imagery that Chuck was actually the least offensive by far. When you have incidental black characters in his shorts, they actually look within reason for the time, and they look human and not grotesque, subhuman, dopey monsters. His Inky series had Inky design based on what would have been in books and travelogues at the time about foreign lands, and it was always intended to be just a sweet little boy in the jungle. This short stands out as nothing Chuck did prior or after, and as mentioned in the commentary we edit, Chuck just didn't want to talk about it later in life, and I mean, can you blame him? It appears, and this is just guesswork since Chuck never really confirmed this, but I would gather that Chuck just had a hole in his schedule. This was the story available at the time, and there was no time to create something else in order to meet a deadline for release, and Chuck reluctantly made it. And given how passionless this short comes across, I'm willing to bet something along those lines happened, but as always, I'm happy to be corrected if other evidence comes around. So, what to rate this one? I just give it 2 out of 10. 1 point for the backgrounds, and 1 for some of the nice animation, and that's it. And speaking of that's it, I have no interest in seeing this short again, and if a restored version comes out, I'm just going to skim it to admire the backgrounds. But, as always, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, take care.
And this time, brother, us ain't kidding.